This is Jamey from Stillmeyer Games, and today I'm going to talk about my favorite mechanism in Pandemic Legacy Season 0, the third game in this trilogy. This will be a spoiler-free discussion of mechanisms that you will know as soon as you open the box and kind of just read the rules of Pandemic Legacy. I won't mention anything that is revealed after the prologue game. The prologue game is the game where nothing changes. It's just you playing the standard version of this game so that you can learn the rules and not make any big mistakes once you get to the part of the game where you're actually making permanent changes. There are three things I want to highlight. And I'm going to start with the biggest because I really, really like this design decision. I have a long video where I talk about how I believe that in campaign games, it is really important for designers to respect the time and the storytelling that they're presenting to players by letting players fail forwards. That means that if you fail a scenario, that you are not forced to replay that scenario. And that you instead use the situation, the failing situation, to advance the story and let players move forward with consequences based on whatever failure they encountered. And Pandemic Legacy Season 0 does something really clever in those regards that distinguishes it, I think, from the previous two seasons. That is, in this game, and I don't remember if this is the case in the previous Pandemic Legacies, but you have objectives that you're trying to accomplish each game. I believe this actually is the case with other ones. So you have typically 2 or 3 objective cards that you're trying to accomplish. And if you accomplish both of those objectives, say when there's 2, if you accomplish both objectives, you have a success and you move forwards to the next month. If you completely fail, if you don't get either of those objectives, you do have to replay the month once. However, and this is the mechanism that I really, really love, if you accomplish just one of those objectives, or any number but not all of the objectives, if there's 3, you get an adequate. You are adequate. It's not a success, but you are adequate, and you get to move on to the next month with consequences. We haven't had that happen yet. We have played through April, and we haven't had an adequate happen yet. But you get to move forward. And I love that they did this. I love that they allowed you to advance the story and move forward, probably just play 13 games of Pandemic Legacy, which is honestly enough times to play Pandemic Legacy. It's a wonderful game. I'm really, really enjoyed it, but I don't want to play it 24 times. I want to have kind of a known number of times that I'm going to play it. And it looks like for us, that number will be very close to 13, 12 months plus the prologue. So I really, really like that while we're playing the game, if we feel like that we're getting close to failing, we can at least go after one of the objectives and get it so that we get that adequate score and can move forward to the next scenario. I think that is awesome that they did it. And I think it's awesome because not everybody is like me. Some people are okay with failing and they want to replay that month. And if you're in that scenario or that situation and you find yourself failing, instead of doing what we would probably do and trying to accomplish one of those objectives, you can intentionally not do that and just fail at both of them, knowing that you get to replay that month again. So I love that they essentially left the choice in the hands of the players as to whether or not they want to have a partial pass and still move forward or fail completely and repeat the month. That's a brilliant addition. I would love to see this in more legacy and campaign games. The other mechanisms, the other 2 mechanisms that I want to highlight here, I have videos about the other seasons. You can go check them out if you want to see other things about Pandemic Legacy. One thing I really like, just a little thing, I like that they ended with Season 0. So instead of having a Season 3, essentially, Pandemic 1, 2, and then 3, where they advance the story in the future, they jump back to the past. And I won't spoil anything here, but they started, in I think that's like the 70s, the 60s or 70s. I really like that. That was a really clever twist. That's not a mechanism. That's more of a thematic decision. But what was the other thing? One of the things that you learn in the prologue is that a lot of the things that you're doing in at least the prologue scenario and a few of the scenarios is you are identifying targets. So the game might say, okay, you need to identify a target in Europe, but you don't know where it is. And there's a mechanism in the game for figuring out where it is. It's a kind of pandemic style where you're discarding certain cards, European cards, to determine where so it's kind of an abstract mechanism. However, there is a non-abstract way to also do that. There's a secondary way to figure out where the target is, which is that when you're drawing the player cards, and you're gaining European player cards, there's one card that's not in there anymore. Because that card is the card where the target is in Europe. I'm not explaining this very well, but basically at the beginning of a round, you'll randomly remove one of the European player cards. These are the cards that you have in your hand in Pandemic. And that card is the target city, but you don't know which one it is. It's face down. And so you can use the mechanism that the game gives you to determine which city that is, or simply by process of elimination, as you're drawing cards throughout the game, you can put little tokens on the board to say, okay, we know that I just drew the Madrid card, so we know that the hidden card that we removed from the deck is not Madrid. So I like that they brought a non-abstract version of this mechanism into the game, a secondary way to figure out what the target is. I thought that was really clever. The last thing I want to mention, I'm not going to open up this passport, but I love that this component, the players each have these passports that they're building characters in. And one of the really cool things that you'll see right in the rule book as well is that you're going to have eventually you will have multiple characters in this passport. And even though you're choosing only one passport per player per game, during the game, you can actually switch characters within this passport. So it's like you're kind of changing your identity a little bit, but within the same passport book. So I love the idea that I've started this scenario with one character, but based on the circumstances that arise during that scenario, I need to switch to another character in this passport, and I can do that because of the abilities that I've built for that character. I love that. That's such a clever character switching mechanism that you can switch that during the scenario instead of kind of regretting your choice midway through the scenario that you chose one character over another. Really, really clever design decision there. As you can tell, I think a lot of thought and love and experience went into forming this version of Pandemic Legacy. We are really enjoying it, and I'm curious to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you do want to talk about spoilers, maybe clearly mark them with spoiler and the month, perhaps, so that anyone who's reading it, including myself, doesn't spoil anything that hasn't been revealed for them yet. Thanks.